Moving our bodies is essential to healthy living, but how we move differs from place to place and across cultures. My name is Hayley Bone, and I've been dancing since I was 3 years old. The more I learned about dance, the more curious I became about the power of expressive movement. On this show, we'll highlight some of the various styles of dance and movement that Nova Scotians engage with, from Highland dance to hip-hop, circus, and more. We'll also get to see how these expressive movement styles support our communities, as well as their individual emotional and physiological benefits. So come with me as I travel across Nova Scotia to explore the ways we move. On this week's episode, I'm back in Halifax once again, this time at the renowned Neptune Theatre. Performances have been held at this site since as early as 1915, when it was known as the Strand Theatre, meaning that this is one of Halifax's principal locations for the expressive arts. I'm lucky to be here today for the showing of Samqwan, a performance dance piece created by Sarah Prosper to raise awareness about the issue of water disparity that many First Nations communities face across Canada. Sadly, there are still around 160,000 First Nations people living without access to clean drinking water in our country. Sarah is a Mi'kmaq woman from the Eskasoni First Nation community of Cape Breton. She is a dancer and choreographer and sits on the board of directors for Dance Nova Scotia. Her work focuses on bridging the cultural divides that exist between Indigenous communities and the rest of Canada. Sarah, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Nindalusi Sarah. My name is Sarah Prosper, and I'm from Eskasoni First Nation, which is on the far east coast in Cape Breton Island. Born and raised, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're a dancer, a choreographer, an artist.
Yeah.
And we're here at Neptune today, Neptune Theatre in Halifax, because your show Samqwan is playing.
Yeah.
And so you have created and choreographed this show, and you dance in it. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your journey with dance and how you started dancing?
Yeah. So I love dance my whole entire life.
Me too.
I started dancing when I was 2 years old.
Oh wow.
My mom put me in it in Sydney, and she knew that maybe I would love it. I was dabbling in a lot of different things. She just put me in everything they could, both my parents.
Is your mom a dancer?
She is not.
Okay.
Yeah, but she started the dance program in Eskasoni after I started dancing when I was 2. So that all came when we realized that it would be a great opportunity for the community and not just myself driving every day from Eskasoni to Sydney.
And was the dancing that you were doing in Eskasoni, was it sort of traditional Mi'kmaq?
So not so much. We had opportunities to share those types of dancing. So Susan Gallup and Kim Roper came to Eskasoni to teach ballet, tap, jazz, contemporary, musical theater, and all these styles. And then we would bring people in from other communities across Turtle Island to teach us, traditional contemporary dance or traditional dancing as we grew up, but never really stuck to having traditional dancing in that program. However, it was always around, and we were always welcomed to community events that were like powwows and other things. Our Eskasoni, we call it, where everyone gathers and celebrates just the community to be together. We shared our dancing that we've been learning all together, so that sort of happened there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so more of the traditional dance parts. I mostly grew up watching those types of things. I've always been involved and around it and inspired through that.
Sarah's story of her return to her own culture is fascinating. Her commitment to honor her heritage through dance and to share that with others creatively, as she does through her show Samqwan, is truly moving. I'm excited to learn more.
In 2018, I came to university and started reconciliation through dance at Dalhousie for the Dal Dance Society. And I wanted to sort of have a space to express, contemporary dance in a way, and traditional dancing and culture in a safe space, and be able to express that in a place where each of us in the room were there for the same reason, to learn about reconciliation and what that means to us and moving through that. And in this class I bring songs, traditional songs of all nations across Turtle Island, mainly use Mi'kmaq songs and hymns that are sung, so you get to hear the language, you get to learn about the drum, you get to learn about different teachings that elders have taught me and other people. It's a very, I would say, a very healing opportunity that has been kind of brought up, and that's mainly because I think I needed it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, I always knew that there was a piece missing in my dance world. I've grown up in this very Euro dance world my whole life, but always had that Mi'kmaq background of dance and life, and it's the values of so many things in my culture that bring out so much emotion and reflection in everything, and I needed a space for that. So that's sort of where this kind of has been building up and has led to Samqwan, which is the Mi'kmaq word for water, like you said. Yeah.
Right. Sarah's story of her return to her own culture is fascinating. Her commitment to honor her heritage through dance and to share that with others creatively, as she does through her show Samqwan, is truly moving. I'm excited to learn more. This week on The Ways We Move, I'm in Halifax at Neptune Theatre speaking with Sarah Prosper. She is at the forefront of the movement toward reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in this province, using dance to bridge the gaps.
I ran a Indigenous camp in Eskizoni called Trailblazing, but it was called Nigini Outdiggin. And Nigini Outdiggin means, to pave your own path and kind of guide your way through. And yeah, I think I've been really fortunate to be part of opportunities that have allowed me to see that, and to be one of these dancers who are coming forward with this perspective of, Indigenous dance matters too, and we should be able to express and share these values of art and history, and movement and traditional movement, and traditional clothing in our movement and dance in stages and in performances everywhere.
Right.
Even
The
just like the skirt you're wearing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this skirt, do you wear it in your show?
Yeah, so I wear this in Samqwan, and you can see here there's waves on this. A good friend of mine, Kate Jadis, made it. And usually ribbon skirts are worn in ceremony and powwows and sweat lodges and those types of things. So you'll see little bits and pieces of that sort of expressed abstractly in my movement, to share what that is and means. Specifically in Samqwan, at the end of the show, you'll see sort of a gesture of what a ceremony would look like, a water ceremony.
value does dance have
Yeah.
in the community?
So basically,
That traditional sort of dance, I should say.
So in Mi'kmaq culture, dancing is very important, and dance in itself, to gather and to share and to celebrate with one another, is a very important thing in our culture, to come together and live and exist with one another. And it's celebrated in those ways. Families come together at powwows and or at birthday parties and those types of things. You'll always see dancing happen. And in Eskasoni, it's also sort of unique because we have that integration of living around, Highland dancing and those Celtic kind of dancing that happens around us, and traditional dancing. So you'll have like step dancing happening, or step dancing and the Gojua happening. So Gojua dance is really important to my family, and dancing about that. So
what's Gojua dance?
Yeah, so Gojua dance is you dance to a instrument called the jigamahan, and it's like slapped onto the leg here or in your hand. My brother sings it, and it's a gathering dance song. So you dance and you like swing your legs together, both sides, and it goes into a circle. So usually that dance would happen before a feast.
Okay.
Yeah, so we celebrate in honor of the food coming, and to celebrate being together as people, and to welcome people. We dance to celebrate one another. I also like to remember, historically, like, people used to move all the time. I think that we talk about, sitting is the new smoking sometimes, and it is. And traditionally, Mi'kmaq people and Indigenous people have always been moving and going places, journeying across lands to, trade or, find food and gather and all these things. And I think dancing helps bring that back a little bit, reclaiming sort of what that means to have movement in our daily life. We sometimes forget as dancers that, movement is science too, and how our bodies move and how our body responds to us moving in a certain way is scientific. Our bodies remember things. And I talk about that a lot in Samqwan, my show, and in the Reconciliation Through Dance workshop and classes that I do, is ancestral knowledge.
Right.
Our bodies remember things, and our bodies are made to move in these certain ways. So if a person has come from a background of, trauma, which many Indigenous people do throughout these hundreds of years, what is happening within ourselves? But also, can we reach far back enough in our ancestral knowledge to remember before the trauma began? And what does that feel like, or what does that look like when we move in those ways, and feel in those ways, and listen and share with one another and see that from one another? It's beautiful. It's so beautiful to see and witness. Dance doesn't always have to be performative.
Right.
What does it mean to have healing? What does it mean to understand that you need healing through these topics as an Indigenous person? I never knew those answers, and I still don't, and I'm still learning and trying to find those things.
So your show, Samqwan, which is the Mi'kmaq word for water, addresses the disparity of clean drinking water for many First Nations communities across Canada. How do you sort of combine elements in your show? How do you use movement and dance to address these issues?
Throughout Samqwan, you'll hear sounds of ocean and whales, and lost and found traditional songs about water, and humming, and then you'll see movement of dancers dancing to these songs and sounds. And it's a very capturing show of emotion, but also you get a chance to learn and see the sacredness of what water is. Because water is a sacred being. It's the most important element for us as beings and for Mother Earth. And we bring that forward to talk about it in a way that, you know, Indigenous people think of water in these ways. However, there are still communities who turn their tap on and their water is brown. They can't even have a drink of it. So to think about that and to think of, you know, ceremonies that exist that need water, to think of our bodies that need water to exist and be well, and to know that, you know, First Nations and Inuit and Métis communities across Canada live without this every day is painful. This is a worldwide issue that is happening. And it is something that we need to pay close attention to, because it's not only affecting us as First Nations people, but as beings everywhere. And to talk about that and know that we're not separated in this topic.
Right.
And that it is not just for Indigenous people. It is not just sacred to Indigenous people. This topic of water has existed for many cultures. And in Samqwan, and this is just one way we get to express it in a Mi'kmaq perspective. And to see, you know, the beauty of that and the grief that is felt when we see our neighbors experiencing no clean drinking water. So that is sort of like where it has come from, and that deep feeling that I have towards this topic.
Right.
And movement allows me to express that.
By shedding light on the lack of access to clean water for many First Nations communities across Canada, Sarah is addressing a fundamental topic for the global human community. Dance allows Sarah to share the Mi'kmaq perspective of water as a sacred entity. My journey to explore the ways we move has brought me to Neptune Theatre in Halifax, where I'm speaking with Sarah Prosper about her show, Samqwan. I wanted to know what her hopes were for offering a Mi'kmaq perspective on the issue of water disparity through dance.
Things get distracting. We get taken away from things that we could be doing, each of us, to better our communities all around. And I think my hope is that, you know, when seeing these topics and seeing groups of people join together, sharing the same topic or coming to watch something that is important, like clean drinking water, or like womanhood, or like missing and murdered Indigenous women, or about, you know, histories of intergenerational trauma. I hope that people remove that desensitized ideology that's been sort of created around these topics.
Right.
And really see what it means to have reconciliation. In order to connect with a person, to connect with beings, to connect with the land and the way individuals are thinking, you need to listen. And you need to see what we are feeling and what we are saying. And I always wondered, where would we be right now if things like this weren't suppressed and lost? Where would we be right now if we accepted one another from the get-go? Where would we be right now if we had been sharing all along and listening all along? And I think that this Indigenous and Mi'kmaq movement that has sort of started to be created right now helps that for people to kind of just see what we need. It's not those conversations that we are trying to have are not always heard.
Yeah, it's a sharing. You're sharing.
Yeah.
So would you like to dance with me? Teach me a little bit?
Yeah, let's share. I'd love to. Yeah, so earlier I was talking about the Gojwa dance when we were talking, and I just want to show you a few steps that we kind of do for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically it's 3 steps on one side, 3 steps on the other, and your hands swing on both throughout the whole thing, and you move in a circular motion.
Okay.
Let's start. You can kind of follow along behind this way and use the step.
Okay.
Basically you're gonna step and boom, chug your legs together.
Okay.
Yeah, so we go 1, 2, 3, and you switch. 1, 2, 3. And you try to keep those feet like really close together, and it's almost like staccato, like it's like it slips together really fast on each side, yeah?
Yeah.
And you go 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had an amazing time with Sarah, and it's wonderful to witness dance giving stage presence to such an important topic like water disparity in Canada. I've left our meeting with a new understanding of the power of dance and wanted to choreograph a piece that reflected both the importance of water and of sharing perspectives through movement. Thank you for joining me on this adventure, and be sure to tune in next week as we explore more of the ways we moved. Sarah Prosper is such an inspiration, not only creatively, but also in the incredibly important work that she is doing for reconciliation through dance. It was profoundly moving dancing with Sarah today, and she has such a bright future ahead of her. I can't wait to see what she does next.